Hello, beloveds. Welcome back to In Circle with Avelina. We are here in my backyard, which is such a treat. I'm here with my dear friend Cat, who we're going to do a really sweet drop-in today about feminine leadership and organic community building. And since we're oriented in this beautiful garden space, just be aware that there can be background noise. You might hear animals, you might hear street noises, and that's just a part of life. And not only do I feel inspired to anchor in here in this time of spring and relish in the flowers and the gardens. And also because I feel like that there is culturally a sterileness when it comes to podcasts around there has to be this like really clean, well-produced studio of all the right lights and all the things. And I really kind of want to dismantle that because there are organic conversations that can happen in some of the most unlikely of places. Just opening up that awareness, acceptance of we welcome you to feel like you are in this garden with us. That's one of the reasons why I have named this podcast In Circle, was so that people can feel like we are a part of the circle. And you're always invited to continue the conversation with us outside of the space. Just reach out to any of us online, because that's what we are here for, is the actual community building, not just the talking heads projecting all of our opinions out into the internet. We're here to be a part of a growing circle and community together. And that's a big reason why I felt inspired to bring Cat here. Cat Bostwick. I don't even know how many people when I first moved to Southern Oregon were like, you need to meet Cat.
Same with you.
You know?
So many.
We both had this experience where everyone was like, you guys need to meet each other. I'm like so glad we did, because I see so much of the heart that you put into community building down here in Southern Oregon. I've just been really amazed to see all the events that you put on so regularly, conscious business networkers, yeah?
Yeah.
And then also women's circles, so much. This woman is a powerhouse. Community builder in such a heart-led, anchored, value-driven way that I also so admire the frequency of femininity that you gracefully weave into your leadership too. So I'm super grateful to have Kat here to talk about what it means to be a feminine leader in this time, and also what it looks like to actually build community. I feel like sometimes, especially in conscious networks, people throw the word community around and they're not actually knowing what that means or building it in a practical way, because we're all remembering what the village looks like. I call it village re-templating, because our ancestors knew community very, very well. And in this hyper-individualistic society we're in now, we're remembering what it actually means to be a part of community. And it takes effort. It takes work. Yeah. And I really admire the ones that go first. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here, Kat.
Thank you for having me, Claire.
So what was your defining moment of clicking of, I want to come here to Ashland, but then also build community here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably goes back to when I started building community. I didn't even know what I was doing. There's a juice bar in Grants Pass called True Juice Organics.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, my brother Chris, soul brother, he owns that, and we became really fast friends. Just totally admired him and his heart for community as well. And True Juice, if you haven't been there, it very much is like a community hub. Like they have regular, family-friendly, conscious events going on all the time, sober events going on all the time. And he was leading a men's group at that time, and I was like, Chris, what the heck? Where's the women's circle? You know what I mean? He's like, I just don't have anyone to lead it. And he's very much one of those people who just loves to empower people. So he was like, you want to lead it? Like, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't even know what I was doing. This was right after COVID. And I could just see how starved people were for connection and friendship. And since I was a little girl, that's always been something I've been really good at, is just making sure everybody in the room feels seen, heard, welcomed. I've never been someone that's been exclusive. I've always been just like, hey, we're good, we're friends, you know, you can be safe around me. And so started holding this women's circle, which was just out of passion, you know, and then it quickly just started growing. You know, the women especially were really hungry for it. Like they kind of naturally gather, and they're very helpful, and they're very, just every week in circle. It's been 3 years now that we've been meeting every single week. And I'm just always so in awe of the women of just women in general, and how they hold space for each other, how patient they are with each other. You know, it's just so beautiful, and it's powerful, and it's actually where I think the seed of true change is going to come from women actually speaking their truth in their story. And I know as like I was a younger girl, that took a long time for me to be like, no, I have something to say. Like, I want to, I want to use my voice. And now you wouldn't even think that because I have a strong voice, you know what I mean? But it took time to develop that. And it was really through this women's circle that I found that, being like, no, I have something to say and it's important. Yeah. So really it started with the women's circle.
Yeah.
And I mean, this retreat I'm hosting, that was just me and my best girlfriends going in nature about 5 years ago. And then we kept coming back. And then when the women's circle started picking up, then that retreat also grew, and so now it's 5th annual year that we gather as women, and it's cool, like I love getting women together because they just naturally do it. Not that men don't, but I think, women just are able to be a little bit more vulnerable more easily. So they're special. I just really believe in women.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so organic when it's like value and virtue driven.
It has to be.
Perhaps you've seen this too, but like I've seen this rise of like capitalist infused like women's offerings that like aren't quite entirely there in like the integrity.
Totally.
And like one of my previous other podcasts, which like you would love, Jenny Jali, from the founder of Temple of Belonging, is like this huge new women's gathering up around Portland that like also started from this very organic way of like the women are hungry. So let's just start gathering in the backyard. And then it organically expands because that's what happens when good people gather. The magnetism is like, you just can't stop it.
Well, it's a new world. I mean, I think that humanity for far too long has made decisions solely based off profit.
Yeah.
And I do think that comes from like more of a patriarchal way of being, and we're at a crossroads right now with the environment, which I think that's where the original severance came from, is this severance with Mother Earth and being totally disconnected from taking care of her. And we are thus disconnected with ourselves and with each other. And I think that we need to make decisions that really consider, that's why we do the Conscious Collaborators Network, that business networking meeting, really considering how our decisions impact the earth, impact each other, not just how much money it makes us. Because that sort of way of being is exactly why we're in the situation that we're in right now with the environment. And it feels it's serious. We've been beyond a tipping point for a long time. So, and again, going back to the women, I'm like, who better to reestablish that relationship with the mother than the mothers?
Yes. Chills.
Yeah, totally. So, and I think the men will follow, because they love the women. I have no problem with men,
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, totally.
I did just mention this to you too before we logged on here, but there are some indigenous prophecies that say that when it comes to the cultural evolution during this highly prophesized time that we're in, the women will go first.
Yeah.
And there's not in a way of tipping the scales in the same kind of gender conflict of are we in matriarchy or patriarchy and constantly fighting for power, but there needs to be a heart-led way. And you're right, when we are coming into right relationship with the earth, women are naturally attuned to listening to her.
Well, actually, women back in the days, things like taking care of plants and modern agriculture actually came from women's work. So it was a woman's job to nurture the plant and the seed.
Yeah.
And I think that right now, just with our culture, what's happening is a balancing.
Yeah.
So I read this quote the other day that says, I don't wish for women to have power over men, but for women to have power over themselves. Yeah. And I think that that's just what the balancing is happening, is women are like, no, our opinion matters. We do need equal pay. You know what I mean? We're balancing right now. And in that same breath, I have compassion for them because they're going through a bit of an identity crisis right now. At least I'm seeing that a lot within our culture here in Ashland. There's a lot of strong women. You know what I mean? And so I think that right now there's just a balancing happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little uncomfortable.
Totally.
It's gonna be okay.
We got this. So you mentioned women's circles as being a really important key for you to step up in your own leadership. Not only just the permission of, hey, you can do this. We want you to do this. No one else is, so who will? But also the permission that comes from being in those women's circles to practice speaking our voice. Were there any particular developments that really expanded for you from the women's circle work that made you realize I am confident enough to do this and actually step up and hold a greater capacity for more circles, more retreats, more opportunities for co-ed and everybody else to come in?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the women's circle really refined me as a person. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm perfect. I don't have any licenses in any of this stuff. We just started meeting, and it was through the women. We organically, like, kind of made our own guiding principles that we now follow as a group. But, like, I got my butt checked all the time. You know what I mean? And really, where I got checked was in the form of listening. That was actually the most powerful tool. Was it actually had nothing to do with what I had to say. And it had everything to do with me listening to all the women and their story. And, like, because I think that's actually where true transformation happens, is when we can provide a safe container for someone to just be heard and to be supported in the form of complete listening. No opinions. I'm just witnessing you. That often is all that's needed in order to see true transformation happen. And I saw it week after week after week after week. And it was that continuing to see that's really being like, I'm on to something. You know what I mean? And it's not even me, you know? I really do mean it when I say it. I really do feel like a conduit. You know, like, I'm a conduit of God's love. I really mean that. So it's been this process of just me continuing to submit to what I believe is God's will for my life, which is to bring people together and to unite people. It's through this continual process of being like, I'm afraid, but I'm going to keep doing this, you know? Because I went through some crazy shit. I, like, lost my job. I was, like, working in corporate America for 9 years and went from this really comfortable salary of $150,000 a year to nothing, you know, within a few days. And I was like, what am I gonna do? You know, like, what makes me happy are these circles and these community events that I host. And so I literally just made a pact with God, spirit source, whatever you want to call it, same thing. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna follow my heart, which I believe is the feminine way. You know, our intuition. I'm gonna follow my heart. I'm gonna do what I believe you've put on my heart to do, and I'm gonna trust you in the way of where the provision comes from. And it's been 2 years since I've been out of corporate America, and my every need has been provided for. You know, when I really look back, I'm like, it's actually all okay. And that's the feminine way too, the trust, you know, in the divine, that, like, I am supported, I'm gonna be taken care of. And it's really been my community and the support of knowing I'm not alone. Because I'm from Arkansas, right? And my family's all the way back there. Knowing that I'm not alone. I remember a month before I lost my job, I was in Women's Circle, and there was, like, big group. There was, like, 30 of us. And I said, I don't know what will happen if I lose my job.
Whoa, chills.
I know. I was like, I don't know what happened. I feel really alone out here.
Wow.
And then straight up, that just happened, and God showed me, like, firsthand what community support looks like.
Wow.
And so many people step up into my life and encourage me, even just verbally. Sometimes that's all I needed to keep going.
Right.
You know? And then through other mechanisms of being like, that's where I feel like the shift is to, away from this capitalist, individualist mentality that believes that competition breeds innovation, to instead shifting to this new way of being, to where actually something that breeds innovation that's actually far more beneficial and less harmful for everyone is actually cooperation and collaboration. You know? And so I believe I'm, like, ushering in this new age of community and business, of, instead of doing everything by myself, leaning on my brothers and sisters in order to get something done.
Totally.
Deep in our heart.
Even if we don't have the words for it, or, like, haven't experienced it before, it exists. And to have that affirmation of it in practice, like, wow, yes, like, unity and provision and faith and all these elements, they're all here. We just get to remember, and then also, like, water the seeds of those dreams.
Totally. I'm not religious, but I do think there's nuggets of wisdom in the Bible, and I think of this one verse that says, if God so cares about the flowers of the field that are here today and thrown in the fire tomorrow, how much more does she care about you? He, she, whatever. I sometimes throw she in there just to mix it up. It's true. Like, I think if we're talking, even if we don't know it, we're kind of disconnected right now, but we carry 12 generations of genes within our bodies. So our older parts of ourselves remember this tribe mentality and remember the way in which God provided for us, you know. Yeah, and so we're kind of returning to that, right? We're going to have to, actually. Things are getting really hairy to where we're really going to, community is becoming very important.
And I also want to touch in on an element that you just spoke to as well. And to me, that's the word attunement. And when I define leadership, the first word that comes to my mind is attunement. because it's that listening, right? Because so often we have this stigma in American society based on the role models that we have been shown of leaders are bulldozing, not listening to the people, not listening to the real needs of the earth, and they're just peacocking of I'm a loud lion in power, king of the jungle. And there's been this stigma around all leadership as a result. Some people shy away from stepping up as a leader in any capacity because they're afraid of like, I've only seen distorted examples of leadership in the world. So I don't want to fall into that. Kind of like the same thing can happen with people in money of like all money is evil because I've only seen people with high amounts of it use it in bad ways. So therefore I'm not going to corrupt myself by having it either. But there's this distortion here of actually we need your empowerment. We need all your voices. We need you to be resourced. And so when I think of leadership as instead of that loud, bulldozing type authoritarianism, I think of attunement, like what you just said, of listening and tuning in what's actually required here. And then the leaders are the ones that take initiative, delegate, and weave the web so that it can actually happen. And everyone has a role, everyone has a voice. And I think that's a defining characteristic of feminine leadership in particular. So I'm curious, are there any other elements and defining qualities of feminine leadership that you want to expand more into?
Totally. I mean, attunement, how do we get attuned? It seems counterintuitive to our culture, but it actually comes through rest.
Yeah.
And not being in this hustle and grind culture. And I've had to learn this the hard way of taking on way too much and my nervous system being so dysregulated and not making good decisions from that place. But when I'm making decisions from a place of peace, I'm able to make the right decision and be like, relief, you know what I mean? The breath. And I think that's actually really important that women help lead the way, particularly in this area of accomplishing everything through ease and grace. So yeah, and I think, for example, the retreat coming up at the end of the month, the main purpose of that is to provide women a space to rest and recalibrate. Because ironically, that's actually when we get these downloads from spirit. When women are on their bleeds in ancient cultures, they were excused from society to go and bleed. And it's because during that time they would receive these spiritual downloads around what to do with the direction of the tribe. And then when they came back to the tribe, they would then share that information, and that was the direction that the tribe would take, And not that men don't have this, I think they do, but women particularly with our womb and our heart, it's like we have two hearts, We do have this deep intuition. And I think that's really particularly women's task is to tap into that intuition through rest and to trust it and then speak your truth.
We are oracles in that sense, where we get to, like you even described with your own path, divining what God wants and wills for you. And then we are the instruments to also attune to the needs of the people and the earth around us, and then allow that higher and grander guidance to help us walk our paths.
And I feel like that's really the task right now, is not for you to be good at everything, but instead for you to just get clear in your own body, what is my gift? And then to bring that gift forward to your community and share it. Because that's actually how we create true support that's far more supportive than money alone, is when we each bring what our gifting is. Because I really do believe each person has a gift. Each person can be a leader in their own right.
Totally.
And really, it's just get clear on your gift and then bring that forward and share that with your community.
Yeah.
I think, kind of what you were talking about earlier, money is an important energy exchange, and to some degree that is important, but I've actually experienced a lot of success through always having a part of my business that's an offering, meaning something that's free and accessible, or very accessible. Part of what I'm doing, I'm using my gift to make money, and then part of what I'm using my gift for is to help my community, my family. So I think that's the task, is everybody tune out the noise of the world and all these distractions, which is crazy. Social media is so distracting.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like it's connected us with the rest of the world in a way to where we can kind of see what's going on in the rest of the world, but at the same time it's totally disconnected us from our local community. It's like we know more about celebrities than our neighbors, and isn't that weird? It's so strange to me. I've never been into celebrity culture or anything like that.
Yeah, because it is distracting from what actually matters.
It's intentionally that. I mean, give them bread and give them circus. That's an old Roman Empire technique in order to keep people distracted, and I do think that that's what it is.
Yeah. I want to add this. I want to drop this real quick. Something that you also just mentioned that I really want to emphasize for anyone listening is that these qualities of feminine leadership are applicable to men too.
Yes.
And people of the entire non-binary spectrum. Because if we really look to even a lot of the disconnect that a lot of men feel culturally, to me, I think it's an aversion to tapping into some of these feminine qualities. And that's where so much of our imbalance culturally and societally has come from, is a hyper masculinization of literally everything. And so if all people can come to an acceptance and embrace of even just these simple protocols, principles of listening and attunement and being really connected with our virtue, and then also our higher listening, I think anyone, no matter how they identify, can benefit from this kind of walk in the world. And that's really what we need, is softer walks, not the intense, I'm gonna take and harvest what I can get. And I even, as you were talking about everyone bringing their gifts, I got the visual of a potluck, you know? A potluck isn't meant to be one person cooks this whole feast for everybody and creates every single dish and burns themselves out. That's not actually enjoyable. The real enjoyment comes from everyone bringing, oh, this is my grandma's banana bread recipe. This means a lot to me. Or this is something that I put a lot of skill and thought into, and it's an offering from my heart. And we all get to put in a little bit of effort. And then together we get to really relish in the bounty.
Totally.
And relax in that. Savor it without overworking ourselves the way that our hyper-individualistic capitalist society would tell us, every man for himself.
Totally. I mean, a good example of that is actually the Conscious Collaborators Network. So that's a monthly co-ed business networking meeting. So as I was creating that, you know, I just kind of went for it. I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but let's send it and let's see how this develops. And there were so many times along the way where I was like, I'm having a hard time. I need help. Like, for example, our venue kind of bailed on us. And so I had to reach out to the community. I was like, look, I'm looking for a venue.
Yeah.
We need a place to gather. I don't know where exactly to go. And so many people within the community were like, try this, try this, try this, try this. So boom, the mechanics of community right there, supportive. Same with the catering, situation. My caterer bailed on me like 2 days before the event. And so I reached out to the community. I was like, I won't have a dinner for you. And everyone was like, let's do a potluck.
Yay!
You know what I mean? And everybody brought food. And like the mechanics of community again coming to life. And like even in the women's circle, like someone being like, I don't have a place to live. You know what I mean? And another woman within circle being like, I have a spare room. You can crash. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like so many little beautiful things like that where I'm like seeing it at these community events. Because it goes beyond the business. Really what I'm trying to build with this is like supportive family, to where it's like, if you need something, you can reach out. Like these networks, I really want them to be a resource support group where it's like, hey, I need someone to come. Does anyone have a lawnmower I can borrow?
Yeah.
You know, why do we all have to own lawnmowers? There should only be like one for a whole block. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, so it's community is so important.
A part of my intention, even with this conversation and sharing it, is to pave the way just a little bit more as way showing for people that want to step up in their own leadership. And sometimes for people that have like gone ahead on the path a little bit more, it's helpful for people that feel inspired to walk their own path of leadership to learn what are some obstacles or challenges that people can learn ahead of time from our experiences, so that they don't have to go through the same way.
Well, I'll say this, that, start scared. You don't have to have it completely dialed out. If you ever get an idea that you're like, ooh, that's good, I want to build upon that. Trust that. That's the Spirit. That's the Holy Spirit picking your heart, being like, hey, try this, and just try it. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as starting out perfect. I started this stuff imperfect, and I've been learning so much along the way, failing forward, making mistakes and failing forward. And then I will say, something that was really helpful for me was trying to form some sort of partnership. I would find someone that maybe needed what I had to offer, which what I'm really good at is visibility and promotion of either brands or events. And I'd be like, hey, I have this event. I'll feature you. Is there any way that we could collaborate? I just also want to say this, that sometimes when you're starting a business, there's a lot of investment of time, energy, and resources up front. So I didn't start making a profit on my events until 7 months.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was a lot of like me kind of doing some side hustles and different things. When you're starting this, make sure that you have another job that kind of supports you so that you can kind of work on your passion. You know what I mean? I had another job. I was still doing business consulting and things on the side that supported me to where this wasn't whole like make or break me. And I've read that in a lot of books where someone might not like me for saying this. I actually listened to this really good book. It's How to Quit Like a Millionaire. And it was about this woman who was this Chinese, like super impoverished, broke, really, really impoverished, low income family. But she developed these certain skills, and like her actually scarcity ended up serving her in life. But one of the tips that she gave was like, don't follow your dream, but make sure that you have another thing that's kind of supporting you while you're getting set up, you know? So that you don't lose your passion.
Right.
Because when this is like, you're relying on this for all of your income, it kind of sours it a little bit. So you got to kind of have two different things. That's the path of the entrepreneur. You have three businesses. Start that, and then try to work with people. Try to form partnerships. So I built slowly over time. And you just got to trust that. Like, there's really no way around it. You got to be willing to invest in initially and hopefully have some other side hustle that helps support you so this main passion you don't burn out.
Right.
You know? But, and then form partnerships with people. Be like, I have this, you have that. Can we mutually benefit each other? Yeah. I do that all the time. Like, even with the CCN event now, there was a guy that came through who's like, man, I really want to come to your events, but I can't afford it. And I'm like, well, what are your skills? And he's like, oh, I do video and audio. I'm like, come take photos and videos for me and come to the event for free. You know, like, boom, sacred reciprocity. Reciprocity is sacred, meaning there has to be some sort of exchange, you know, like even whether it's money or a skill. I don't care. I'm cool with bartering. Trade's cool. You know what I mean? Because truly, by working with people instead of doing things alone, which is kind of my whole shtick, you know, that is what has amplified my impact. I've gotten so much farther working with people than working by myself and sharing the profit. Don't be afraid to share, you know? It's what goes around comes around. Like, whatever you invest will be returned to you sevenfold. Yeah. So whether that's good or bad, you know, whatever you invest is going to come around. So friendships abundant. Yeah, you know what I mean? Family, good food, air to breathe, like, count your blessings. That's another thing too, because it gets hard and you have to wake up in the morning with gratitude, you know, counting your blessings. Thank you so much, you know, Creator God, for all of these things, you know?
Absolutely.
Because it gets hard. You got to stay, you got to keep your mind right, you know?
Especially in our hyper-capitalistic society that will tell us that the barometer for success is always just high amounts of money. And it's like, wait, there's so much richness in the subtlety in life that is already here, you know? And I had a previous podcast with Max Ribner that I also highly recommend where he spoke about the greatest wealth is relationships, you know? And even if you look at really highly successful, typical capitalist business people, they get where they do based on their relationships and network.
Straight up. Networking is that's another one. Networking is the best skill you can hope to acquire if you're in business. That's why I did this business networking event, because you seriously do not know who has the other piece to your puzzle. Right. And I have met so many cool people that I'm now collaborating with on various projects through this networking event. Business and profitable business is actually a byproduct of strong relationships. Yes. Like, strong relationships, like my business partner, Steph, who I do this retreat with, soul sister. We're like 100% trusting each other, like, no doubt in each other all. We're like, we're going to give it our all. We're going to split 50-50, complete integrity and everything, no lying, no deception, and like, that, and it's made us successful, you know? Yeah, totally. And I think women are really going to help lead that too, you know?
For sure.
Because the relationship is more important than the money, for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's like rebuilding an actual sacred economy now, rather than like the top-down hierarchical economy that we've been used to in our culture, where it's like the 1% has the most and then maybe it trickles down. What if the economy was more structured like a spiral? You know, based on that reciprocity of give and receive, and we all get fed.
I mean, something I've like been meditating on a lot. Like I said, I came from a religious home, but I'm no longer religious. But I reflect back on like what I learned a lot as a kid within like traditional Christianity, and I was reflecting. I went to this music festival up in Canada called Shambhala, and dude, it's such free love vibes. Like everybody is just loving each other. Like, it's just such good vibes. And when I was leaving that festival, I cried because I was just like, man, that was like so, like, sometimes I would leave festivals are like the hope of humanity, you know, there's just like the good ones are like such bonding, such good care for each other. And this guy actually gave me this pamphlet on the way out, and I was like, oh, great. I thought this was like a guy's like Christian pamphlet or whatever. And I started reading through it, and it was all about community. It was about Christ's true message was to love your neighbor as yourself. That was Christ's true message.
Yeah.
Like, whatever the Christian church took it and manipulated it so that they can manipulate others, literally, like, God is love, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I realized, I reflected back on this other verse that talks about love. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. So I looked at that, and I was like, what's the opposite of all these things? You know, what is impatience? What is pride? What is jealousy? You know, what is keeping a record of wrongs and not forgiving someone? You know, what is being easily angered? Selfishness. And it's like, if we can rid ourselves of being so self-focused, you know what I mean? And instead really consider others and their well-being as not more important, but just as important as our own. That's how we're going to heal. That's the mechanic of community, being like, your success is mine, you know, your hardship is mine, and bearing with one another in love, making allowances for each other's faults, and just really sticking with each other in life. So that's my task. I'm not saying I'm there, but I work on that a lot. Like, how can I be less selfish? You know what I mean?
Right. It's a North Star. And, like, we're never meant to, like, reach the North Star in this, like, little feeble human lifetime. But, like, it's a good direction to hold.
Totally.
And in my reflections of those same qualities, especially around selfishness, something that's come through with me is that sometimes selfishness, actually more times than not, is actually a form of scarcity.
Oh, totally.
Because it's like this fear-driven, like, I need to get as much as I can. That's where greed comes from.
Totally.
It's insatiable because there's not this actual relishing in what you already have.
Totally.
And there are some really, quote-unquote, societally accepted, successful people that are in so much scarcity, whether they realize or admit it or not. We all feed each other. We're all fed, and that's richness. Legit. That's wealth.
Legit. Dude, the scarcity thing, which is totally a program that's been put into us, this misconception there's not enough. Kidding me? There is so much, there's too much. Overconsumption's a problem. Yeah. And I was thinking about it the other day, I was like, whoa, overconsumption actually reinforces scarcity. When you feel scarce, you maybe start spending or trying to acquire things outside of yourself. Then once you spend on all these things, you've overconsumed, and then you really feel scarce because you don't have the money. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, like these things that just reinforce each other, where it's like, yo, the quicker that we can understand that our every need is met. And I learned this hard. When I lost my job, I lost my house, I lost my dog. I had to get rid of pretty much everything I owned and simplified my lifestyle so much. Went from really great salary to not. I was like, whoa, I gotta be frugal, you know? And I actually learned through that process how little I need in order to be happy. Straight up. Yeah. I just need a bed to sleep in. I have my computer and my cell phone. God, give thanks. You know, my car, give thanks. You know what I mean? And I can get food and some gas. Chilling. I'm like chilling, you know? And then like we started doing in the women's circle, we started doing these clothing swaps. Clothing swap. Amazing. Know? And I haven't bought clothes in like over 2 years because we've just swapped. So I can exit the matrix in that way. Actually, me and my friend Brad Wadelia, we're working on this community app that's going to be kind of this hybrid between helping community organize around community projects that are important to us. Because I don't really believe in like waiting around for change from our leaders. They can't bring it about in the way in which we need to, like they can't bring it about at a pace in which we need to see it. Instead, I believe in the power of the people, really just deciding to be the change we want to see. But also another part of this app will kind of be like this, like Joe's List on steroids of being like, yo, this is what I have, this is what I need, connecting people to resources, you know? You know, it's true. It's like there's so much plastic in circulation. How can we reuse things, you know? Like, man, my lifestyle's given I was forced into submission with this one, but it's changed so much, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And even just to describe our environment here, I was hearing sirens like a little bit ago, and it made me think about mutual aid. And that community is also holding up and helping to resource those that need it most, that may be going through crisis. And a lot of times what happens, again, in this hyper-individualistic society, we just drop off our friends even sometimes that they lost their job or a health crisis or something happens where they can no longer fully depend on themselves for a period of time. And that's a really important element of this real heart-led, virtue-driven community building of listening and being there for people in our times of need.
Totally. Especially so, actually. I know it's uncomfortable, but it's like, man, I was there. You know what I mean? And even people just giving me the time to listen. Like, that was sometimes all I needed in order to, be like, all right, I can, my head up and go again. Sometimes that's all people need is an encouraging word and being like, I'm here for you. It's going to be okay. Figuring out, I saw this really cool solution by the Dutch. They put college students that really couldn't afford housing in nursing homes. So in exchange for them providing kind of companionship for the elderly, they got free housing. So I think I think that heart-led solutions like that exist everywhere.
Yeah.
Like if we could just figure out how to mutually benefit each other. I just need to do something that helps me keep doing what my passion is. Here I am thinking I have had major depression all my life. And it's like, no, you just weren't doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, you weren't in the right environment either.
Which that's a good tip for anyone out there. If you are experiencing depression, I encourage you to lean into that and to really investigate, that depression is there trying to show you something. Oh, you're either in a relationship you're not supposed to be in, a job you're not supposed to be in. Depression literally takes all of your energy and slows you down to where you can't keep going down that path, Yeah, so it really served me. I used to struggle with depression, now I don't.
Yeah, when I was a teen, I struggled with depression, but a part of that was because I grew up around the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
The culture was so stifled of you have to go to Harvard, you have to work in tech and all this stuff. And I was this artsy garden kid, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. What do you mean? There has to be more than this. But I had no exposure to anyone else walking in that more creative way. So I got really depressed because I didn't have access or answers or options.
Turned off your light.
Yeah, totally. And just on the term of moonlighting, of having this extra gig to supplement your dreams, I also really want to emphasize that there is so much entrepreneur culture too, where business coaches out in the world, you'll see them on social media a lot, pressuring people of just quit your job and go all in, jump off the cliff. And I'm like, that's not sustainable to the nervous system though, or even the finances. Let's actually do this in the feminine way of listening, walking slow and being intentional rather than just the bulldozing of, I'm going to do it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. This is just something that came up, just some more encouraging advice. I just want to encourage everyone, don't be competitive.
Yeah.
Don't be insecure. You have a particular gift. I don't think there's any reason to compete because you have something that I could never have, and vice versa. And we each bring something very unique. And even if there's 1,000 sound healers in one town, people come to you for your medicine, your particular way of doing things. So I just want to encourage people, there's no reason to compete. Let's celebrate each other. If you want love, you got to give love, right?
Yes.
So if you want to, if you want to be celebrated, celebrate other people. Yes. You know what I mean? You get what you give. Truly, that's helped pave the way for peaceful relationships.
Right.
So, and I think also that competitiveness is kind of an old way that is more patriarchal, it's like one, because you had to, you had to line up each other to survive, but we're not there. We don't have to do that anymore. And
that's again the scarcity.
Yeah,
there's not enough for all of us.
Totally, exactly.
There is only a unique gift that you can offer the world. And when we tune out the noise and the distractions of what other people are doing, what coaches say you should do, or what society says you should do, and you really get to listen to the divine assignment that you were given, and who your blueprint organically is, you don't have to question it anymore.
Yep, totally. Because you really do. You've been put here for a reason. There is a specific plan for your life. So, and we don't need to worry, because of that.
Yeah, and we need all of us to step up.
Yeah, we sure do. We need every single person. It's going to actually take every single person taking responsibility and owning their gift and bringing that forward. Every single person. Yeah. We're only as strong as our weakest link.
Yeah.
Totally.
Thank you for all of your stewardship and permission giving and paving the way so that other people can do that too.
Claire, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
You're a sweetheart.
Yeah, I love you.
Thank you. I think that's, in my opinion, that's kind of the heart of everything I'm doing, is trying to help people actually connect back with Mother Nature, because I think that what's going on right now with the environment is very critical and it affects all of us. And so, just really helping people take better care and consideration of the earth and feel hope. you know, I'm a hopeful person. I think that we can change this thing, you know. I don't think anything's too lost. I believe in all of us. Yeah, and something powerful happens when you gather people together with shared intention in prayer. Magic happens.
Yeah.
So I really do believe in prayer technology.
And then you have the Conscious Collaborators Network.
Yep. So that's every second Wednesday of the month. It's a usually an hour-long dinner networking social followed by a 45-minute live interview with a different featured healer from the area. But this next one, I think I'm actually going to expand it. I think I'm going to start off with yoga and breath work from 4:30 to 5, and then networking from 5 to 6, the interview from 6 to 7, and then late night, you know, DJ, you know, and have people dance until about 11.
Best networking ever.
Yeah. I mean, I like, this is also encouragement for you. Like, whatever you do, just do it you know?
Yes.
Like, I've thought about this. I'm like, I don't want this to just be a boring old networking event. Like, I want to party, you know what I mean? Like, I love to dance. Like, let's dance, you know?
This is what we all want.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh.
So that's once a month. And then the Women's Circle is every Monday at 6 p.m. And then I have been doing men's events once a month. I don't lead those, but I just find a male leader from the area.
Yes.
Yay.
Oh, thank you for gathering the people in a good way. I look forward to so much
it's a joy.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come hang out in Southern Oregon, y'all. The people are really good here, if you can't already
super
tell.
Good. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, Kat.
That was awesome.